Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be taking this 1993 first gen S10 dash out of this truck. I'm going to show you everything that I'm going to use to get this out, where the bolts are, what connections we need to unplug and unhook, hopefully to make this as painless as possible and get this out pretty quick. We have a lot to cover. Let's get started. So the goal for this video is to pull this dash out as painlessly as possible and hopefully maybe help some people that may have questions on what you need to remove to do that. I don't think it's going to be that bad. It's just kind of like a lot of steps, and then make sure you label everything if you're really going to use a lot of this stuff again. If you're not, then you probably don't need to worry about that. I am planning to use some of it, like I'm going to put a aftermarket radio in it. I'm not going to use the CB and the heater and stuff like that I plan to use, so probably going to keep that. The lighting, I think it's what they call it, courtesy lights or something down there. I'm trying to use that stuff again, and maybe the speakers, but I don't know how that's going to work if I decide to put a roll cage in this after all, because the bars will be running up through here, and of course there's a dash bar that goes across if you do at least an 850. So we'll try to do that. First of all, what we're going to do is we're either going to start over here at the glove box, or we're going to jump down here, and from my research it says to drop the steering column even. So we'll start with this panel and then look up under there, see what we can do. May not need to do that. So I'm going to grab some tools, bags, and a Sharpie, and I'll be right back. Okay, so the actual first thing I'm going to be doing is taking this lower steering column part off, and it actually looks like whoever in this previously has had this off before. So what I'm going to start with is just unloosening these screws with a Phillips screwdriver, and we'll take this little scan port off. And then after we get that off, we'll jump up here and take these others off. Like I said, I'm just going to put these in Ziploc bags, nothing too crazy. Try not to break anything. That's the main goal here. Alright, so that's loose. So set those aside. And like I said, we'll just smooth that out of the way. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If yours hasn't been removed. 7, 8. There's actually 2 more down here. So I'll take these out. Okay. Only 4. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 if you count the little scanning port. That's how you get the lower steering column part off, and it should just come right off. Actually, I lied to you. It actually looks like it might be in behind here, so we'll have to loosen up the brake release as well, which you probably can't see there. Oh, you can. Loosen up your brake release. And it looks like all these screws are about the same anyway. So that should allow this whole piece to drop down. And there is a little AC hose behind here. So we'll just gently unscrew that. You can see that. Just pop that off. Alright. So now we have that part done. Let's take a look here and see what we need to do to get this column dropped. Okay, so the lower steering column cover is loose. As you see, we just removed all the screws. We also removed the screws, but we need to release this before we're thinking about dropping a column, which we aren't going to actually do yet because I don't know that I'll have to. We'll take a look at it here later on, and we maybe come back to that. But in order to release this, there is a little cable right there, and if you see that piece there right in the center, I don't know if I can get this on here so you guys can see it. Right here, this right here, you're going to pull this little metal piece here, and there's like a little slit here. Push that forward, pull the cable, that little handle out here comes off. So I'm going to do that. We'll remove this piece, and then we'll probably move to the glove box and start taking some screws off over there. Glove box part. So glove box looks like it has multiple screw and bolt locations. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 across the top. And then we have 1. Originally, it looks like there may have been 2 or 3 down here in between the door and the bottom piece of the glove box. We have 1 here, and then there's 1 here also for the door. You can see that. There you go. Looks like the pieces over here connect to this cover that covers up the radio. And I've already taken the ashtray out down there. And of course the previous owner had a Van Halen tape in there. So I'll get some tools. I'll get a socket and my Phillips screwdriver, and we'll take this out and we'll see if there's anything that comes up with taking this door off. If not, we'll jump over to the radio part. Okay, so I got all the screws out of this. And the only thing I can see is this piece that was inside here probably did not need to come out, but I'm going to paint it because they painted it like a silver for some reason, and I want it black. And this little button here is for the glove box light. As you see, it has like a little plug there. I am going to start labeling this also, so we'll unplug that. And then this little cluster here should come out. There is one more screw, it looks like, right here in the bottom. We'll get that out. We'll take that off, take this glove box piece off. As you see, I took the door off. It's really simple. You just undo it after you do your screw there, and then pull it out from the side over here, and then take the little arm that folds the glove box down out through here. Simple. So let me take that screw out and we'll label that wire and we'll have this piece out. So I got the radio and the radio dash bezel out. I also took the vents out as well, the little cover plate that's on there. Labeled the wires, and here is, this was the cigarette lighter. It's gonna have to fix that too. I don't want that like touching anything. That's what they had the CB hook to, which I haven't taken out yet, but basically I just wrapped it around there. I'm gonna fix that, probably put some heat shrink on it. We'll get to that later. So after we did this here, before we jump to the screws up underneath the dash, we're going to jump over here and do the bezel. I know there's some bolts behind here. We'll get this off, get the light switch over there off, and we'll start looking for bolts there. First, I'm going to clean this up and we'll be right back. So now we're going to be removing the outside trim piece, the heater controls and the lights, as well as the dash cluster itself. So to begin with this, what I'm going to do is grab my Phillips screwdriver. As you can see, there are two screws right there on the bottom. We'll unscrew those. Two screws there. We'll do that first. And then we should be able to get these heater controls on. I think there's a bunch of cables and like a gear and stuff behind this one. Over here, I believe it's just a bunch of plugs. So we'll start with that and we'll see what it looks like. So we got the light switch part off. On mine in particular, it's two plugs. I'll label them as wires, so when it's dangling there, I know where to put them. It's pretty self-explanatory where the plugs go. They're not even the same size. And then in here, to get this outer piece here off, if you can see back in there, which I'll try to get that on there, there is a bolt right here where my finger is. Looks like it's about a 10 millimeter. And then you also have another one down here on the bottom behind these plugs. You can see that down there, right there. There's one on each top and bottom and on the other side, and that should take the outer piece off. And then once you get the light switch and this HVAC control off, after you take your screws out of the bottom, they should just drop right down. You'll actually move to the dash piece here, which will be held on by these little screws here. That holds the cluster itself. There you go. And then there's another one down there. There should be two on each side as well. I'm going to have to take this HVAC control off camera. It doesn't pull out really far, and I don't want to break anything. But if I see anything in there, I'll be sure to mention it when we come back. So I finally got the heater control piece out, and it kind of goes just like you see it here. This goes on top. This is over here on the closest part to the gauges itself. It's like a little tiny clip. This one here goes in the back. If you can see that in there. This here is a little cable that goes on the side, closest to the gauges. That is probably for the vent control. And then we have this plug over here. Like I said, maybe I just mentioned that. That goes in the very back. And then finally, you have your little pack of vacuum lines there. So what that looks like on here is top. This is the little piece that will be going closest to the gauges, because it actually goes like this. plug in the back, vacuum spot, and then the little control arm for the vents goes here. Now, to get these off here, what I did was grab some needle nose pliers after I unplugged this stuff here, and you just pull this off, and then you can pop the little lever cable off. Same with the vacuum lines. Make sure they're nice and tight when you put it back on, which this ought to be a real pain to put back on, I believe. We'll see, hopefully not. And same thing here. This just holds the vacuum pack of hoses on. So now I'm going to grab a 10 millimeter, I believe that it is, and we're going to take the 4 corners of the bolts out, and then we'll remove the dash piece. So let me grab some tools and I'll be right back. Okay, so now we're going to be removing this dash piece around the gauge cluster. There's going to be 4 bolts, and they are 10 millimeter. You can see that. I'll get that to focus there. It's there in the center. And then you also have that one down there. And then you have over here one at the top, and then also that one down there in the bottom. So I'm going to take that off, and then we'll work on getting this gauge out. Passenger side is out, and now what we're going to do is take the last 2 off. As you see, this is what I'm using to get it out. I'm using a 1/4 inch ratchet with a long extension and a deep socket. It's plenty of clearance, as you can see here, right there. Plenty of room. Just give it some turns, loosen it up. Go ahead and loosen the bottom one as well. Plenty of access here using this setup here. I don't think there'll be any problem getting it out. I'm gonna unscrew it by hand now because I don't want to drop the nuts somewhere behind the dash and have it get stuck somewhere. Go ahead and loosen those up. And then loosen the top. And we should be done. This should come off. So let's see here in a second. All right, put your hand in there. Let's unscrew it by hand. I don't think that it would be that bad to put this back together now after messing with it. So my biggest concern was mainly because this is my first time doing this too. But I did research it some. I never could find a video that quite showed everything of what you need to do. People either had it out or were just taking the dash out completely. But in this case, I'm going to plan on using this again, along with a lot of the stuff. So now this whole piece should come out, I believe. Let's work on this. There we go for there. There we go. There, and there you have it. There's your whole piece there. Now we have plenty of access to get to our 4 bolts on each corner for the gauge cluster. So we'll work on that next. So now we're going to be taking the speedometer, gauge cluster, trip mileage, all that good stuff out. Now when I just showed you, I referenced these little tiny bolts here, but that only takes out this little tiny piece here. We are attempting to take this whole piece out. So there are still 4 bolts on each corner that looks like they need to be removed, and I'm sure there's some plugs behind here and a cable and whatnot. But we're going to be taking these longer ones out in the 4 corners, similar to what we just took out. And if I'm not mistaken, these are the same studs that held the other piece in. Still 10 millimeter. So we'll go ahead and pop those off, and we will pull this cluster and take a look at the wiring behind it. Alright, so I started to pull this off already, and now what we're going to do is just pull it off the studs on each corner. You do have to lift up, maybe this tolerance is really tight here. Just pick it up at the bottom. At the top is pretty easy to pull off. So use a little bit of a leverage, use the screwdriver just to pick it up enough to where slide it off the stud. It comes loose. And you can see that on camera. There's what it looks like behind. Now, it already popped off here. This goes into the plug here at the bottom. Now it looks like we have this main piece out. We can go ahead and pull this center piece out. There is something else attached to a belt. Oh. So there is another cable here. And if you have an automatic transmission like this one was, there is a little cable for the park selector lever, and I'll show you how to get that off. Parking select lever for this is this little clip here. You're just going to take that off. That's your little gear indicator right there. And now we should be able to take this whole piece off. There we have it. And there also we have it. Oh, look, there's something behind here. Some kind of ticket, raffle tickets. So there it is. Let's jump to the next step. Okay, so now that we got the gauge cluster out, we're going to move to taking the bolts out of the bottom of the dash. And what I can see is there's one here, which is 10 millimeter. You have one up here by the steering column. Up here should also be 10 millimeter. And then over there on the opposite side of the bottom of the dash, where the driver's side that I just showed you, you should also have a 10 millimeter. So I'm going to take those out and then we'll see how loose the dash is. Got the bottom 3 screws removed. Now we should be pretty close to getting ready to pull this out. Still do have the top screws, but we're getting pretty loose. I believe there's 4 screws up top. Now, if I'm not mistaken, they might be 7 millimeter, similar to what we used earlier. Yes, they are. So we're going to take those top 4 screws out. You have one here, and then 2 on the other side of the vents. Once we get those out, the dash should be able to come out, hopefully. Let's jump to it. So before I jump to the 4 bolts, what I'm actually going to be doing is taking the speakers out here in the dash on each side. And there's 2 screws holding in the speaker and cover into the dash. In my particular application, they are Torx head screws. I don't know if that's factory or if the previous owner had them out and that's what he put back in there, but I'm going to be using a Torx 15 to get those out, along with a ratchet wrench. Since it's so tight in here close to the windshield, I'm basically going to be putting the bit in like that, holding the top of it onto the screw as such, holding the top, and then loosen it up to where I can unscrew with my fingers. So I'm going to get that out. Then once you get that out, as I've already done this one, pop the screws out, and then we're going to pop the cover itself out with the speaker on it. And you might need to maneuver it a little bit. Shouldn't be too bad. There we go. And you see, just a little plug, speaker wire and plug. Looks pretty nasty in there, so we'll get that cleaned up as well. But I'm going to unplug this, unscrew the other side, and then we'll move to the 4 bolts that I talked about earlier. Okay, as you can see, we have to move to the top of 4 bolts. Hopefully these are the last of the bolts and I didn't miss anything yet. And then we should be pretty much home free, aside from a few random wires that may be hooked and some HVAC hoses such as this behind the dash. I think I got most of it. So let's jump to this. I'll unscrew these and we will see if the dash comes out. Okay, so we've been messing with this dash for a while now, and now is the moment of truth to see if this is actually going to come out, which hopefully it will. I don't think there should be anything else holding it on. We're looking good here. Oh yes. All right, so right off the bat, I see some cords and HVAC stuff that's just attached on here. We'll pop those out. Hose. Now, the good thing about this video is it's going to give me a reference to put us all back in one day. So I'm going to hop over here on the other side, and we'll see if we can't get this side out too. Everything looks loose and good so far. Nothing's broke. We'll see in a second. Okay, this could be the home stretch. Let's see. So first of all, I know what we need to do is pull some of these wires back through the dash, because I don't want to be pulling them out too. All right. So what I can see here is we are stuck on something here. And I believe it's just some HVAC stuff, honestly. We just need to disconnect that. So I'm going to reach my hand in behind here and disconnect this HVAC stuff. And then hopefully we can pull it out then. But I also see a plug down here in the bottom. If you can see that on the camera, it looks like that's going to have to be unplugged as well. which is not a big deal, it's just a plug. And then we'll hopefully be able to pull it out. Okay, so after a few profane words and several attempts of climbing under, unhooking some more HVAC, some wiring harness clips that were actually clipped in behind where the gauge cluster goes, and several snap holds, as that's what you call them. They just kind of push through the plastic and hold the wire loom and some other random wires. I think I finally have everything disconnected, and this should be completely free and able to come out, which looks like I actually still have one more hose to pop out here. There we go. And our dash is free. Now we have finally taken the dash out. We'll touch base and recap everything we'll do right here, and we'll get this wrapped up. Here's what we're left with after we take the dash out. You got all your controls, you got your wires. These right here is what I was talking about just a second ago, is attached behind the gauge cluster, and there's another one on the other side. There's no way to reach those that I'm aware of unless you're down up underneath of it. See, and all this wiring is tucked up under there real tight, and it's hard to get a socket on, but you can do it. You just got to reach around, climb in and out, and there should be no problem getting everything unhooked. I don't know that I'll actually hook this back up on both sides, maybe just the one, whatever side's easier when I go to do it. I also question whether an 850 dash bar is going to fit across here with the stuff that's on the back of the dash. Hopefully it will, because I do want to keep the heat in this truck. As you've seen on the channel, if you've watched any other videos, I did convert this from an AC to a manual heat box only, just to save some engine bay room. So here is the dash completely removed now. As you see, thankfully we didn't break anything. There's a few boogers on this. We are going to fix this and clean it up real good as best we can, and it's going to be getting a coat of trim black paint similar to what we did on the door panels, if you've seen that video on my channel. Needs a lot of work, but I don't think this is going to be the bad part. I think putting it back in is going to be the most difficult part. So we may touch base on that in the future, and there we go. Alright, so that's going to wrap up the video for the dash removal. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. If you made it this far in the video, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It helps the channel greatly and YouTube's algorithm. If you have any questions, definitely let me know. This was fairly easy up until the last part of it, where there's a lot of climbing around and then sticking your arm down in places where you can't really see where you're doing. You just have to kind of guesstimate, feel around. But it's doable. I think going back in will be a more difficult part. We may touch base on that later at some point, but we have a lot of work to do until then. Check out one of the other videos on the channel, and I'll see you next time.